Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with some cards using some of the new release products from Simon Says Stamp's June 2022 release, the Let's Chill release. And there's this beautiful, Butterfly Dreams stamp set. And as soon as I pulled that out of the package, I was like, ooh, this will work really well with shimmer powders. I did a video not too long ago using an older butterfly set that I still love and the shimmer powders. And that one is a lot more detailed. Like it has a lot more stamped detail, if that makes sense. If you go back and look, and it'll be linked in the playlist. I'll link at the end of this video. But this one has a lot more, I guess, open area, which is kind of nice because you'll be able to see the color a little better. This set would also be really nice you could just do ink blending, but for coloring and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I'm still obsessed with my shimmer powders. So I took pieces of Canson XL watercolor paper and I had put them in my MISTI, and I used my anti-static powder tool. And then I stamped these butterflies with clear embossing ink. And then I coated the stamped images with detail white embossing powder. And I did 2 pieces of the watercolor paper with this so that I had all of the butterflies. And then melted that with my heat tool, which always looks very boring on camera because white on white. It's like, fun. But made sure it was all, smooth, melted, good to go. And then once I've got these panels melted, I'm going to press them both into pieces of MISTI sticky mat. The sticky grids that I've shown in a ton of videos. I've cut some down to smaller pieces. This just keeps the watercolor paper from like immediately curling up when I spray with a ton of water. You could also just tape these down to a hardboard, something that you don't mind getting wet. Just something to keep the watercolor paper more flat, because you need to heavily saturate it when you're doing this, and it'll immediately curl up and then all the color runs off. If you watch my older videos using shimmer powders, I dealt with that a lot because I wasn't thinking about like keeping them flat. So they're stuck those sticky mats. It helps keep them flat. And then I'm using my 3 go-to colors. All the shimmer powders are gorgeous, but I have really been loving just messing around with the Solar Flare, Cherry Bomb, Blue Blitz, because you got pink, yellow, and blue. And when they mix, you get the rainbow, and it's so much fun. And like I always say, and I've shown why in other videos recently as well, don't squeeze the bottles. Lightly tap. I barely tap with my index finger. I just use my fingernail because there's like a seam on the bottom of these bottles. So I'll basically kind of scrape my fingernail against the seam, and that just gets enough powder out because you don't need much. You do need to experiment with them to get a feel for it, and you start to know after a while. So after I've, sprinkled all those powders, and I made sure to kind of make sure each butterfly got a mix of the 3 colors, and then I heavily saturate these. I jump between using my Nuvo Mister bottle or my Distress Sprayer one. The Nuvo Mister bottle is more of a fine mist, like a super fine mist, which I like for things like this because you just get a nice light mist and it's not like blowing the powders everywhere. The Ranger Distress Sprayer, I like that for doing more like water techniques because you can get like the splatter effects and you can get like heavy spray with that one. So they each have their uses. Either one honestly will work fine for this. Basically, you spray it heavily with water and technically you leave it. I used a bit of paper towel just to soak up some of the excess, just so that it's not pooling a ton, and then it'll dry faster. And then I did take a brush, mostly just to make sure areas were kind of filled in. And if there were any little spots, because there was like a couple little spots that still had some powder that hadn't like mixed with the water. But other than that, you leave it. And it looks like a hot mess, but then when it dries, it's so much fun. So if you're using sticky mats, these will like kind of curl up away from the sticky mat as they dry, but that's fine. Not a big deal. I just like them staying flat when I'm doing all the spraying, etc., so that the colors can stay in their lane within reason, you know? So once these were completely dry, and usually with stuff like this, like I'll spray it super heavily and then I set it aside so that I don't mess with it. Plus it can take quite some time. More often than not, I will do these and I'll just leave them overnight, come back to them later, or I just set it off to the side somewhere and go work on other things. And then I'll come back and check on it, you know, after an hour, however long. I honestly don't know how long it takes to dry because I just leave it because I'm really bad for, you know, poking at it and messing with it. It's like, leave it alone, let it dry, and you'll just be surprised. So I die cut them all with the coordinating wafer dies. And then I pulled out the new retro tiles background. I have so many ideas for this background. It's fun. I don't know what, there's something about like this graphic, but solid. You know, I'm drawn to the more like sort of geometric line image backgrounds because I've done, you know, a bunch of videos using that with shimmer powders, etc., etc. But this one I thought would be really nice to do it very neutral. So I put my card bases into my MISTI and I masked off where the scoreline was. And then I inked up this background with Simon's new flannel ink. With this release, they released more positively saturated ink colors, and there's purples and grays, and I'm happy. But stay tuned, I'll have more videos coming. It's been a crazy week. But anywho, I stamped all my card bases with that background stamp. And then I just took little bits of washi tape to hold these cards closed because I want to do a bunch of splatter. And I find that if I hold them closed with some washi tape, that just eliminates me getting splatter on the insides, although that would be okay. I also need to make a point of doing this more often. Kathy Zielski does that. She uses washi tape to hold her card bases closed when she's like assembling everything on top of the card so that it's not, you know, getting in the way or not staying flat. You know, just use some washi tape. And I'm like, duh, that's brilliant. So I need to make a point of doing that because it's annoying sometimes, you know, when your card base just doesn't want to agree with you. But anywho, I taped all the card bases like closed, and then rather than use my splat box this time, since I've got 4 cards on the go, I just laid out my flour sack cloth again. You know, it gets absolutely filthy with everything. I just throw it in the wash once in a blue moon, basically. When it gets so saturated, that's when I'll wash it. But laid that out so I don't get splatter absolutely everywhere. And then I used my Gonzai Tombi Starry Colors palette and mixed up the gold in there, or one of the golds in there, with my little fan brush, and then splattered that gold on these backgrounds because rainbow and gold and like neutral gray, just perfect. So I splattered all of these cards and then set those aside for the splatter to dry. And while that splatter was drying, I did a bunch of die cutting using the new Sending Good Vibes wafer die. There is an outline for this. You can actually see it there kind of at the top of the screen. I didn't use the outline. I just used the words, or word, really. It's, well, whatever. You know what I mean. It's been a long week. Anywho, used the wafer die cut layers of white cardstock, and then the top layer was die cut from Simon's matte gold cardstock, which I stacked together to give them dimension. And I did this multiple times for all the cards. But yeah, while the splatter was drying, I just did the assembling of that. And then once the splatter was dry, I can open those cards again. And I'm putting them back into my MISTI with the inside this time. And I just pulled out the CZ Design Spring in My Step stamp set, because I really love the sentiments in this one. And I pulled out the Paper Hugs sentiment from that set. And I'm going to stamp that on the insides of the cards with Simon's Golden Locks ink. I've shown this in several videos. This is kind of like my go-to gold ink that isn't a pigment or metallic pigment ink. Like when it comes to metallic pigment inks, my Delicata Golden Glitz, chef's kiss. It is a beautiful ink, but it takes forever to dry, and I am too impatient for that. And especially on the inside of the cards, I don't feel the need to go that extra step of using the metallic pigment ink. And then I'm always too impatient. Even if I try and heat set it, I end up smearing things and just making a mess. So Simon's Golden Locks ink is my go-to. So I stamped the sentiments with that. And off camera, like kind of in between this whole process, I ended up stamping the smallest butterfly and one of the other smaller butterflies from that set and heat embossing it and using the shimmer powders, because as everything was coming together, I was like, ooh, I can have 2 butterflies in the front because the little one will fit perfectly. And then I can stick the other one on the inside of the cards. So I had done all that in between, you know, things drying and the literal chaos that is my house between kids and pets and just everything. Anyway, once all of it was done, it was just a matter of assembling. So I adhered the sentiments with craft tacky glue. I adhered the butterflies, and I kept most of the adhesive to where like the body of the butterfly was, because these, you know, curled up a bit. Even after die cutting, you know, I could have easily just kind of bent them a little bit, you know, made it go flat if I wanted, but they're butterflies. So I only applied adhesive to the bodies and let the wings kind of stick up a bit. So it gives it that little extra bit of dimension. And then I used my Studio Katia Color Burst pearls because they just go perfect, literally perfectly. When I do this like rainbow shimmer powder mix, the pearls look like they were done the same way. So I fought with my camera and my flashlight to try and show the shimmer. It just sometimes doesn't want to work, but like, oh, they're so shimmery. I love these butterfly images because, yeah, you could just have so much fun with them, but you could totally keep them so much simpler if you wanted. If you don't want to mess around with like watercolor or coloring in general, you could do like ink blending. Right there. There, the flashlight's kind of picking up the shimmer on this one. It just, oh, there's like that blue shimmer from the blue BLITZ one and the rainbow colors, and it's just fun. Like super, super fun. So once I had the outsides assembled, I'm going to show the insides, and I just adhered that remaining butterfly to the insides of all of these cards just to give it that little extra something. And then once everything was adhered, these cards were complete. And like I had said earlier, I will have a link to my YouTube playlist at the end of this video that you can check out. I've got over a couple dozen videos using these shimmer powders in all sorts of different ways, all sorts of different combinations, and not all of them this rainbow combo, although I do this one a lot lately because it's just fun. But I'll have that. And then, of course, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll link to all the supplies I used. This video is part of a blog hop, so there's actually like codes and giveaways and tons of inspiration. I will have all that info on my blog, which will also be linked directly below the video. It'll be a direct link to that post, so you don't have to go hunting around. So you can check that out below if you're interested as well. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting. I very much appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.